Hello everyone, welcome to week 2. Last week we learned how to add simple object splitters and a rigid body 2D. We also wrote a technique script that destroyed the object when we click it. And we turned that object into a prefab. And this week we will take a big step. We will create a player square and that can move left and right and jump. And we will add some round coins that disappear when the player tosses them. This is the foundation of our platformer. So first, let's create our player object. Also, last week we already have a ground in this. So if you don't have it, you can create a new one. First, we create a player, 2D object, space, and square. And we can rename it to the player. We can place it on our ground. Okay. And to make the player react to the gravity and collisions, we need add a rigid body 2D components. Rigid body 2D components. And we will increase the gravity scale to the 3. And so jump later feels a bit heavier. And then we need add a boss collider 2D. So the player has a collision shape. And now we need also create a new layer called the ground and assign this layer to the ground object. And we will use the layer to detect whether the player is standing on the ground or not. First, click this one and click the add layer. Sorry. You make ground. Click the ground object and turn the layer to the ground. And to make the jumping feel correct, we need a reliable way to check if the player is touching the ground instead of checking from the center of the player. And we will create a small point at the player face. So we select the player in the hierarchy and right-click it and choose the create empty. And we named it to ground check. And in the sense wheel, we moved the ground check down so that it set right under the perfect. So we won't say this in the final game, but we will use the position to test for ground collisions. Now we will write scripts that make our player move and jump. So in the scripts folder, create a new C# script called the player show 2D. Okay, and open it. Yeah, it's named the PlayerController 2D. And to save time, we will not going to write out every line of code step by step here. And you can find the script in the Google Drive, Player Controller 2D. Okay, and we select all and copy, select all, paste. Okay, let's see the scripts. Let's see these scripts. As top of class, I define some public var uh, I define some public variables for movements and ground checking, and move speed control how fast the player moves left and right, and the jump force control how strong uh, the jump is. And for the ground check, we have a layer mask called the ground layer, and transform refers to the ground check and a small ground check radius. This tells Unity where and how big the ground text area is. And next, in the awake, we get the rigid body 2D components and store it in a variable called RB. In the update, we read uh, horizontal input with input get access raw horizontal, and this gives us -1 when we press left, and 1 when we press right, and 0 when no key is pressed. And we also listen for the jump button. By default, this is a space bar, and if the player is currently grounded, we call our jump method. And next, in the fixed update, which runs in same with the physics engine, and we apply horizontal movement by citing the rigid body's velocity, and we also perform the ground check using physics 2D overlap circle, uh, and we check for any glitters on the ground layer overlapping with our ground check position and radius. So if the overlap exiting is grounded, will be true. And the last one, jump method simple sets the vertical part of the velocity to jump force. And we will save the scripts and go back to the Unity. And we select the player and add the player controller 2D on it. Okay, now uh, we will see the ground check and the ground check radius and ground check layer. So we need drag our ground check child into the ground check field and set the ground layer to the ground layer we create. And now let's test it. We can press the play, and now we have the box can move on the ground. And now we can use the A and D keys or the roll keys to move left and right. And when I press the space, you can see the player jumps, but only when they are standing on the ground layer. So if you feel the movement is too slow or fast, and you can adjust the move You can adjust the move speed and in the inspector. And if the jump is too high or too low, too weak, the jump force value, and to adjust the jump force value until it feels right. And now let's add a collectible coin. And I will go to the game object and 2D object sprays in the circle and name it to coin. We add the circle collider 2D to this object and check its trigger. So that means the player can pass through it, but we will still receive the trigger events when the player enters the collider. And in the script explorer, I create a new C# script called coin and open it. We can find our scripts in the Google Drive coin.all past. So in this script, uh, I implement the onTrigger enter 2D method, and that means when another collider enters this coin and Unity calls the onTrigger enter 2D, and we check if the collider belongs to the player by use collision, and compare tag player if it does, and we will destroy the coin. And later, in a few weeks, we will connect this to the game manager and actually increase the score. And for now, the coin just disappears when the player touches it. And I will save the scripts and go back to the Unity. And click the coin and drag it into the inspector. And now let's test it. Oh, so you can see some mistakes. We need to turn the player tag to the player. Now we can retest it. Oh, we can see when the player touches the coin will disappear. And this gives us a basic view of the platformer. movement, jumping, and collecting something. And in the week 3, we will upgrade the wearers with proper art and animations. See you next week.